Here we are going to see the manual design of isolated rectangular footing. This complete problem we are going to solve in 5 important steps. In the first, along with the problem statement, there will be brief general discussion about the rectangular footing design. In the second step, we will see how to decide in-plan dimension of the footing as length, width and depth. In the third step, we will see design for the reinforcement along the length and width of the footing. In the fourth step, there will be design checks against the one-way and two-way shear. And in the last step, we will see the final design schedule and detail of this footing. For better understanding of everything from basic concept to the final design of rectangular footing, it's request with you all kindly watch this video till the end. First of all, try to understand the problem statement. A solid footing has to transfer a dead load of 1200 kN and an imposed load of 300 kN from a column of size 230 by 450 mm. The grade of material that we have to use for the design of this foundation, we have to use as M20 and Fe415. The safe bearing capacity of the soil is given as 300 kN per meter square. The allowable settlement is 25 mm. With all of this given data, we have to design the footing. Now let's start the design. In the first step, we need to find out the in-plan dimension of the footing. So try to understand what does mean by the in-plan dimension of the footing. So requirement of this length and requirement of this width is what in-plan dimension of the footing. So how much the length, how much the width of the footing should be for the safe design is mainly depends on the two important factors. That is, first one is what? How much the load needed to transfer to the subsoil coming from the column. Whatever the load coming from the column, that actually we need to transfer to the subsoil. So you need to know this, how much load is coming from the column. Second important factor you need to know, that is what? How much the bearing capacity of the soil on the proposed land. How much the bearing capacity of the soil is there. If you are going to take the ratio of this load divided by SBC of the soil, it will tell you about how much area of the footing is required. Now the same thing we have to consider in our proposed example. Here we have given that the dead load is of 1200 kilonewton and the imposed load is of 300 kilonewton, and there is also given of bearing capacity of the soil. So as I told you, there are two important requirements are there for finding out the in-plan dimension of the footing. One is your load, another one is your SBC of the soil. So both of the things are actually given in your problem statement. Okay, so here dead load plus live load is going to become what? Totally as 1500 kilonewton. Here we have given as 1200 kilonewton and 300 kilonewton. If we are going to add these two forces, we are getting what? The value of 1500 kilonewton. Now the second thing is what? Assuming the weight of the footing as 10% of the load on column. Why it is needed to consider the self weight of the footing? Try to understand that. So like here actually we need to design the footing, and after the design of the footing only you will get the length of the footing, you will get the width of the footing, you will get the depth of the footing. These three dimensions you will get after the complete design of the footing. But here actually only the column load is not going to be transferred to the subsoil. One additional thing is going to be transferred to the subsoil, that is what? Self weight of the footing. And we are not having anything given in your problem statement as the self weight of the footing. We need to consider that in our calculation the self weight of the footing. So how you will calculate the self weight of the footing? Because for finding out the self weight of the footing, you need to have the length, you need to have the width, you need to have the depth, and these all three dimensions we have to multiply with the unit weight of your concrete, because it is a concrete box, concrete slab it is. Like we don't have this length, width and depth. That's why we are going to consider that we are going to take into assumptions that the self weight of the footing will be 10% of your load coming from your column. So 10% of load coming from your column, that is what? 1500, it is going to become what? 150 kilonewton. Now ultimately total load that is going to be transferred to your subsoil is what? Load coming from your column plus self weight of this footing. This combined will give you total load that is going to be transferred to your subsoil. Okay, so same thing we are going to implement here. That is what? Total load transferred to the subsoil will equal to 1500 kilonewton plus 150 kilonewton. It is going to become totally as 1650 kilonewton. Here it is what? It is in kilonewton. Now required area of footing is going to become what? As I told you, total load that is going to be transferred to the subsoil divided by SBC of the soil. SBC of the soil has given as what? 300 kilonewton. Okay, that we are going to put here. And the demand of the area of the footing is required is what? 5.5 meter square. This much area of the footing is required. In respect of demand of area of footing as 5.5 meter square, we need to decide the length and width of the footing. But here note has given that the length and width of the footing should be decided such that the pressure distribution should be uniform at the base of the footing. So try to understand why it is recommended that the pressure distribution should be uniform, and another thing, how you can ensure that your pressure distribution at the base of the footing will be uniform. So when you are trying to position your column centrally over the footing slab, so if you are succeeded to put your column centrally over your footing slab, so we can ensure that your foundation will be subjected to uniform pressure distribution. And if you succeeded to maintain the uniform pressure distribution, so we can ensure that the settlement in your foundation will be what? Uniform. But when you are going to talk about the column which is going to be eccentrically positioned over your foundation slab, so we cannot ensure that your foundation will be subjected to uniform pressure distribution. In that situation, when the column is going to be eccentrically loaded, eccentrically positioned, pressure distribution will be what? Non-uniform. On one side there will be more pressure distribution, and on the other side the pressure distribution will be what? Small intensity of the pressure distribution will be there. So in this situation, what possibility is there? Your foundation is going to experience the unequal settlement, or you can say your soil mass is going to experience the unequal settlement. Both the things will be there. Here the soil is going to be compressed more. Here your soil is going to be compressed less in comparison of this side. Because on this side you are going to impose the more stresses. But when you talk about foundation which is going to be centrally positioned column, so we can ensure that pressure distribution will be what? Uniform. Now here the question is what? How you can ensure that your foundation will be subjected to uniform pressure distribution. So one concept is there. If you are going to apply that, so we can ensure that the pressure distribution at the base of the footing will be what? Uniform. So what concept is there? So concept is what? You have to take the projection along the side of your column up to the foundation edge. All the projection should be what? Equal. So here the projection should be equal to this one, and this two projection should be equal to this projection, should be equal to this projection. So overall I can say that the projection should be in all direction from the face of your column up to the edge of footing should be what? Same. So for that, what we are going to do, here they also have suggested that to ensure the uniform pressure distribution at the base of the footing, the projection X that we have shown here, okay, the projection X on all sides of the column should be what? Same. Okay, so here length of the footing I am going to consider along this X direction as the length of the footing. Along this direction, Y direction, I am going to say it is the width of the footing. Another thing, this is this dimension of your column. Depth of your column I am going to consider as A. This is the width of your column I am going to consider as B. Okay, so length multiplied by width of your footing is equal to 5.5 meter square. That is what required. We are taking it from here. I am going to call it as equation first. But if you are going to look at the figure, so along the length, what is there? How much this length? It is the A. Along this direction A plus 1x and this 1x, that is going to become 2x. So A plus 2x will come here. So length of the footing is going to become this much. Width of the footing is going to become what? This is the B and this is the x and this is the x. So B plus 2x it is going to become as BF. Now overall I am going to put these two values of LF and BF in the equation first. So we are getting what? A plus 2x multiplied by B plus 2x is equal to total area of footing required, where A is the 450. In our problem statement they have given that the width of the column is 230 and depth of the column is 450. So that dimension we are going to put here as 450 and 230. So equation is going to become what? 0.45 plus 2x multiplied by 0.23 plus 2x is equal to 5.5. If we are going to solve this equation, so we are getting what? Quadratic equation. Hello everyone, welcome you all in a new ISO certified live training program, design of substructure using CSI Safe Excel and manual. In this training program, you will learn all about the concept of substructure design, commands in CSI Safe software for the substructure design, validation of CSI Safe result with your manual and advanced Excel sheets. This training program will cover 4 real life projects. In the first and second, we will cover all the types of isolated foundation in CSI Safe software. In the third real life project, we will cover the raft foundation. And in the fourth real life project, there will be the coverage of pile and pile cap design of basement wall. And at the end of this training program, we will learn how to prepare the final design sheet for the site execution. Have a look over the features of this training. Daily live classes conducted by experts. Recording of every session. Can interact with expert anytime. Exposure to real practice. ISO certification of training. It's 5-star rated training program. Till now, more than 1,000 participants have benefited from this training program. Now you are the next.
As 4x square plus 1.36x minus 5.396 is equal to 0. On solving of this quadratic equation, we are getting the value of x equal to 1 meter. So the projection on all sides of this column face up to the edge of footing, that will equal to 1 meter. This will also be equal to 1 meter. This will also be equal to 1 meter. This will also be equal to 1 meter. So if we are going to take the projection from the face of the column up to the edge in all direction as equal to 1 meter, so we can ensure that the pressure distribution will be what? Uniform at the base of your foundation. Okay, so just come down, and here it is what? Length of the footing is finally is going to become what? Length of the footing is equal to A plus 2 into 1. That is ultimately going to become 2.45 meter. Width of the footing is going to become what? B plus 2 into 1. B is what? 0.23 plus 2 into 1. 1 meter projection is equal to going to become what? 2.23 meter. Okay, so length of the footing required is what? 2.45. Width of the footing is finally required as 2.23. So what I am going to do? I am going to round up this value. So instead of 2.45, we are going to take slightly greater value. So I am going to take here the final length of the footing as 2.5 meter. Width of the footing demand is 2.23. So we are going to take it as 2.25 meter. So this is the final length of the footing, width of the footing. Hence, provided area of the footing is going to become what? Length into width, the final provided is equal to 2.5 multiplied by 2.25. That is going to become 5.63 meter square. This final dimensions of the footings we have to put here and have to find the final provided area of foundation. So here final provided area of foundation is what? 5.63. Now compare this 5.63 provided area of footing with the required area of footing. So how much is the required area of footing? So the required area of footing is what? 5.5 meter square. And provided area of footing is what? 5.63. So our provided area of footing is greater than required area of footing. Hence, so we can say that it is okay. In every design of the foundation, whether it is square footing or rectangular footing, every type of foundation, you have to provide the area of footing slightly more than that of the required area of footing. We have provided more area of footing, so that I am going to say okay. Now next, upward soil pressure means what? Try to understand. There is a foundation and there is a column. We know that the load is coming from this column, and through this foundation we are going to transfer the stresses to the subsoil. So in a result of application of the loading, your soil mass is going to exert the pressure at the base of your foundation, and for this upward soil pressure actually we have to design our foundation. We are not designing our foundation to carry the load coming from the column. We are not designing the foundation for that. We are designing the foundation to maintain its stability against the upward soil pressure. This is a myth in our mind that we are designing the foundation to carry the load coming from your column. No, it is wrong. We are designing the foundation to maintain its stability against the upward soil pressure. Okay, that is going to be developed at the base of your foundation from the subsoil, from the result of application of loading. Try to understand. Okay, so upward soil pressure will equal to 1650. As I told you, the total load coming to the soil. Total load is what? Load coming from your column plus self weight of the footing. Finally, we got the value of 1650 divided by provided area of footing is what? 5.63. So if we are going to take the ratio of this, so we are getting 293.33 kilonewton per meter square area of footing we are getting. Now again one thing you need to do, we need to compare this upward soil pressure with the SBC of the soil. So SBC of the soil given is what? 300 kilonewton per meter square is actually your SBC of the soil that I can show here. 300 kilonewton SBC of the soil. Now what you need to do, just come down. So here 293 kilonewton per meter square upward soil pressure, and your SBC is what? Your upward soil pressure is less than the SBC of the soil. SBC is how much? 300 kilonewton per meter square. So we can say that we are on safe side. Remember that always your upward soil pressure should be less than that of your SBC of the soil. And in our calculation we are getting what? Upward soil pressure less than of your SBC. So we are going to say our design is what? Safe. We can proceed further for the later steps. Now after knowing the length of the footing as 2.5 meter and width of the footing as equal to 2.25 meter, we need to find out the third dimension of the footing as depth of the footing. But this depth of the footing is going to be influenced by the two criteria. One is your flexural criteria, another one is your shear criteria. So try to understand what does mean by this flexural criteria first. So whatever the depth is required as per the flexural criteria, we will decide that, and that depth, provided depth, we will check against the shear criteria. So if your provided depth will become safe in the shear criteria, so that we are going to finalize that depth of the footing. So try to understand what does mean by this flexural criteria. So when you are going to apply the load through this column to this foundation, and earlier we have seen that whatever the load you are going to put over the foundation slab through your column, your foundation is going to transfer that load to the subsoil. That is the responsibility, and against the action of the applied load through this foundation to the subsoil, soil is going to exert the return pressure at the base of your foundation. That is what here it is shown by the upward direction. So what will happen? The load is going to be transferred from this column through this width of this column, through this size of this column, and there is a reaction from downward side from the soil. So there is a downward reaction, there is a downward application of the loading, and there is the upward reaction. Due to that, this part of the footing is going to be what? It is going to become stiff. There will be no possibility of any instability in this part of the footing. It will not settle anywhere. It will not deform anywhere. This part of the footing will be what? Very, very stiff, because there is a downward action, there is a reaction from the subsoil. So it will not move anywhere. But when you talk about this remaining part of the footing, so there will be two parts is going to become one part on this side, one part on this side. Okay, two parts will be there. So this part we are going to consider as a cantilever part of the footing. This part we are going to consider as a cantilever part of this footing, because I told you it is having the infinite stiffness. This part, middle part, is having infinite stiffness. So we are going to consider as a rigid portion. We are going to consider this part is what? Having the rigid portion. And this part we are going to consider as cantilever. This is the first thing. Now second thing, this cantilever portion is having the reaction from the soil only, reaction from the downward side only, upward pressure from the downward side only, and there is no application of the loading from the upper side. Some of you may think that there is a presence of the soil mass, and that soil mass will exert the load over your foundation slab, this cantilever portion of the slab. So you are right, but here we are going to neglect this downward pressure where exerted by this upward, this soil mass. Why it is? Because whatever the load going to be exerted by this soil mass in downward direction, it is very, very less than that of the upward soil pressure. So that's why we are going to neglect that. So dominating reactive force will be the pressure which is going to be exerted by your soil mass. So it will be dominating, and due to that it is what the cantilever portion, and this is what the upward soil pressure. So it is trying to bend this cantilever portion of the concrete slab in upward direction. It is going to be deformed in this upward direction like this. Same behavior is going to be done in this left hand side. So it is going to be deformed in this direction. Okay, so deformation of this concrete footing slab under the application of the upward soil pressure, we are going to call it as what? Flexural behavior of this footing. And due to this bending, there is a greater bending moment is going to be developed at the face of this column. At the face of this column, there is a development of huge bending moment due to result of this upward soil pressure over the base of your footing. And we need to find out against the moment how much depth of the footing is required at the face of this column. So how to find out the movement, how to find out the depth against the flexure, that all things we need to calculate. So come to our calculation and let's try to understand how to find out the movement and then how to find out the depth required against the flexure we are going to execute for that. Now we have to calculate the movement at the face of the column along the length of the footing, and also we need to calculate the movement at the face of the column along the width of the footing. So in both of the direction we have to calculate the movement. But before of that we need to calculate this projected span along the length of the footing, this projected span along the width of the footing. So how you can calculate this? The total span as L, length of the footing. So length of the footing minus your side of the column along the length of the footing as equal to A divided by 2. When you are going to put these all values here, so you will get this projected part in this direction. So after putting all these values, so at the length of the footing is what? 2.5 minus 0.45, the side of your column divided by 2. So you will get the value here as 1.025 meter as projected part along the length of the footing. Along the width of the footing, if you are going to put these all values as width, so this width is equal to 2.25 minus width of your column as 0.23 divided by 2. So you will get the value of this calculation as 1.01. You will get the answer of this calculation as 1.01 meter. So in both of the direction we have calculated the projected span. This projected span is very important to calculate the movement at the face of your column in both of the direction. So what formula is there? Try to understand the formula along the length of the footing. This is what your size, your footing along the length of the footing. This is your column, and we want to calculate the movement at this face of the column along the length. Okay, so this cantilever portion and upward soil pressure. Here the upward soil pressure is how much? 293.33 multiply it by, it is what in kilonewton per meter square upward soil pressure. You have to multiply it with the width of the footing. If you are going to make the calculation along the length, so width is going to become this actual width of the footing. So I am going to consider here is what in meter actual width, multiply it by this cantilever portion, that will equal to 1.025 square divided by 2. Okay, so ultimately it is giving the result in kilonewton meter, that will be your movement. So I am going to put all the values here as upward soil pressure as 293.33 kilonewton per meter square multiplied by full width of your footing as 2.25 multiplied by 1.025 square divided by 2. So you are getting the movement along the length of the footing as 346.07 kilonewton meter. It is what service movement. But for the design purpose, we need to have the factored movement. So just multiply this value by 1.5. So you are getting the factored movement along the length of the footing 520.05 kilonewton meter. Once more, it is very important, try to understand. If you are going to make the calculation along the length of the footing, So width will be what? Actual width of your footing. The width will be along the transverse direction in respect of considering the actual length. Likewise, you have to proceed for the calculation of the moment along the width of the footing. So if you are going to do the calculation for the width of the footing, so upward soil pressure multiplied by your length of the footing. Now try to understand again. Suppose this is your footing and this is your column, and we need to calculate the moment at the face of the column along the width of the footing. I have to do the calculation for the moment. So here it is what? This cantilever portion, that is what? 1.01. So upward soil pressure will be same multiplied by 2.5. So width is going to become what? This length. We are making the calculation along the width. So along this width. So for that, width will become in this direction. This length will become width for the calculation of the moment along this width direction. So that is what? 2.5, okay, multiplied by 1.05 is square divided by 2. So you are getting the service moment along the width as 374.03 kilonewton meter. If you would like to find out the factored moment, so factored moment is going to become what? 1.5 multiplied by 374.04. So you are getting factored moment as 561.05 kilonewton meter. So two moments we are having. One is along the length of the footing as factored moment 520 approximately, and factored moment along the width of the footing as 561. So for finding out the depth, what formula is given? Moment will equal to 0.138 if your grade of steel is Fe415. In that situation, the formula for the moment will equal to 0.138 FCK B into D square. This is the formula. If you would like to find out the depth, so depth will equal to square root of mu ultimate moment divided by 0.138 FCK B. Now here the same formula we are going to use for finding out the depth required, but here two moments are there. One is 520, one is 561. So you will be confused about which moment we have to use for finding out the depth. So maximum moment will give the maximum demand of the depth, maximum requirement of the depth. So we are going to consider the maximum moment amongst these two along the length, along the width. So maximum moment is what? 561. So I am going to put the moment as ultimate moment as 561.05 into 10 raised to 6. Okay, that is going to become in Newton mm divided by 0.138 FCK, characteristic strength of your concrete. So the grade of concrete we have given as M20. So the characteristic strength of the concrete is going to become what? 20. Now the most important question is what you have to consider for the width. So we have taken the moment as 561. For the calculation of 561 moment, we have considered the width as what? 2.5 meter. In other way, you can understand that this is our footing, okay, this is our column, and the moment along the width we are going to consider for finding out the depth requirement. So for calculation of the moment along the width of the footing, we have considered this length. So that we have to consider as 2.5 as a width. So that is going to become 2500. Try to understand. If you are considering this one length, so the width is going to become what? 2.25. Likewise. So that's why I am giving the more importance to explain this length consideration, width consideration while calculating the moment, while calculating the depth. Okay, try to understand, don't do the mistake. So here 561.05 into 10 raised to 6 divided by 0.138 multiplied by 20 into 2500. So you are getting the depth requirement as 285.15 mm. This is the depth required. Okay, overall depth required for your footing as effective depth. It is not the overall depth, it is the effective depth. And hope that you all understand what does mean by this effective depth. Suppose this is your footing and you are going to provide the reinforcement here. So this is your clear cover and this is the mid of your bar. So if you are going to measure from the down face of your footing up to the center of your bar, that we are going to call it as effective cover. It is going to call it as what? Effective cover. And from the top face of the footing up to the center of the bar, we have to call it as what? Effective depth. We have to call it as what? Effective depth. So it is effective depth required as 285.15. But instead of this requirement, by getting the idea from this requirement, I am going to provide overall depth for the footing as 650. So you may raise a question, why you are going to consider this much very high depth of the footing? Because there is a demand of the depth of the footing as 285. So why you are going to consider overall depth directly as 650? So the reason is what? This is a flexural requirement. This is what the flexural requirement. According to the moment, we have calculated this depth requirement. But in actual, your depth of the footing is going to be influenced by your shear criteria. This is the second criteria for deciding the depth. So if I am going to proceed with this depth for the later calculation, so definitely your depth is going to be fail in shear criteria. So for the safety concern, I am going to take a slightly more depth for your footing. On later stage, if it is coming out to be safe in shear, so we will provide it. And if it is coming out to be over safe in shear, so we will reduce it. Okay, just come down with 650 mm depth. So we are going to consider a clear cover as 50 mm and diameter of bar as 16 mm. So how much the effective depth finally will become? So total depth we have considered as 650 mm. Now this is the 16 mm diameter of bar we are going to consider. I want to calculate final provided effective depth of the footing as D. So that will equal to effective depth. Total depth is what? 650 minus your clear cover, that is what? 50, minus half of your diameter of bar, that is what? 16, divided by 2. If you are going to put this value, so you are getting the value of effective available depth as 592 mm. You are getting the available effective depth. In every steps of the later calculation, we have to consider the effective depth as 592 mm. So here all the three dimensions of the footing we have decided that the length of the footing will be 2.5, the width of the footing will be 2.25, and the depth of the footing will be what? It will be your 650, overall depth as 650 mm. You need to understand this. After knowing the effective and overall depth of the footing, next we have to find out the reinforcement required in the foundation. So first of all, try to understand why it is needed to provide the reinforcement in your foundation, and next where actually have to provide the reinforcement, either on the side of the footing, either on the bottom face of the footing, either on the top face of the footing, where actually we need to provide the reinforcement in your foundation slab. So first of all, we need to understand the flexural behavior of the footing. Earlier we also have seen this flexural behavior. So under the application of the loading, okay, there will be the reaction from the soil mass, and this part is going to become infinite stiff. So that is not going to settle anywhere, that is not going to deform anywhere. Okay, but on this projected part there will be upward soil pressure, okay, due to which this cantilever slab or cantilever part of this footing slab, it is going to be deformed in this direction. It is going to be what? Deformed in this direction. So there will be two faces you will get for this cantilever slab as top face and bottom face. So top face will undergo in the compression stresses and bottom face will undergo into the tension stresses. At the bottom face there will be the tensile stresses, at the top face there will be the compressive stresses. So as we know that wherever in your structure or in structural element there is a tensile stresses, there we have to provide the reinforcement. That's why in the foundation slab we need to provide the reinforcement in the tension phase, on the tension side. So this the bottom face is under tension, is under tensile stresses, so we are going to provide the reinforcement here at the bottom. Same thing for the left hand side, we need to provide the reinforcement here for the bottom face. On the top face there is a compression, that's why we don't need to provide the reinforcement on the top face. This is especially for your isolated foundation. But when you are going to talk about any other type of foundation like combined foundation or any other type of foundation, so we need to look the flexural behavior first, then we will decide the where actually we have to provide the reinforcement. But yeah, for all types of isolated foundation, the top face will be under compression, bottom face will be under tension. In that situation, you need to provide the reinforcement at the bottom face. There is no need to provide the reinforcement at the top face. There are exceptional cases where we are providing the reinforcement at the top face also, but right now we are not going to discuss that. Here we have to provide the reinforcement only at the bottom face. You need to understand. So we need to find out the reinforcement along the length of the footing over the width, over the considered width. This is another important point you need to understand. Suppose the footing is there that we are considering. This is the footing and this is the length of the footing and this is your width of the footing, right? And there is a presence of your column. So we have calculated the movement at the face of this column. We have already calculated the movement at the face of this column. So the calculation for the movement we have made along the length of the footing by considering the overall the width as 2.25 is the overall width. In meter or in mm, it is going to become 2250 mm. So by using this movement over the considered width, we have to find out how much reinforcements are required along the length of the footing. How much reinforcements are required along the length of the footing, but its spacing will be along the width. Most of the times participants or students are confused about this concept. So by using this movement that we have calculated along the length of the footing over the considered width, if you are going to find out the reinforcement, so along the length movement is there, that's why reinforcement will be along the length, but its distribution will be along the width. You need to understand. Okay, so what formula is there? There is a formula to find out the reinforcement. AST is equal to 0.5 multiplied by FCK divided by FY inside bracket 1 minus square root of 1 minus 4.6 ultimate moment that we have calculated divided by characteristic strength of your concrete. B is your considered width. If you have made the calculation for the moment by considering the 1 meter width of the footing, then you have to consider 1 meter. But we have considered while making the calculation of ultimate moment along the length of the footing, we have considered what? Full width of the footing as 2.25. So that's why here also you need to put the 2.25 means 2250 mm. In mm you have to put d square effective depth as 592 is there. Let me show you. Yeah, 592 it is, multiplied by 592 square multiplied by b again width multiplied by effective depth again. Now put all this value in this formula. So we are getting the area of reinforcement required along the length of the footing as 2534.35 mm square, and this is what I am going to call it as design requirement. It is what the design requirement, because we are getting this value of the reinforcement in respect of your calculated movement. That's why we are going to call it as what? Design requirement. Second, you need to understand how much the minimum area of reinforcement required as per your codal recommendation. So your IS 456-2000 has recommended that minimum percentage of reinforcement in your slab or in your foundation slab, how much it should be if you are using higher grade of steel like Fe 415, Fe 500, Fe 550. If higher grade of steel if you are going to use, in that situation the minimum percentage of reinforcement in your concrete slab should be what? Concrete slab or foundation slab, it will be 0.12% of B into section size as B into D. So if you are going to put this value, so how much it is going to become? 0.12% of percent means divided by 100 multiplied by width is how much? Width considered as 2250 multiplied by overall depth you have to put here as 650 mm that we have decided earlier. So based on that, how much area of reinforcement required? 1755 mm square area of reinforcement is required. And it is what? Minimum requirement. Two requirement we are getting here as one design requirement, another one is the minimum requirement. But you are all well aware that amongst these two requirements, one is design requirement, another one is your minimum requirement. You have to compare and you need to consider the maximum one among these two values. So one is your design requirement, which is 2534, and another is the minimum requirement is 1755. So we are going to look at these two values, which one is the greater one. So yeah, we are getting the design requirement as the greater one, so we will provide the greater one. So this much reinforcement at least we have to provide in your foundation along the length of the footing at the base. Now here I had decided that I will provide the 16 mm diameter of bar along the length of the footing. So unit area of bar is going to become what? 201.06. Unit area of bar, one single bar of 16 mm dia having the unit area as 201.06 mm square. So finally I have to find, in respect of the design requirement and unit area of the bar, how much spacing is required for the reinforcement which is along the length and it is going to be distributed over the width. Okay, so very important point. See what is there. Suppose this is your reinforcement which is going to be distributed over the width and it is along the length. It is along the length and distributed over the width. Okay, so how much spacings are required between the two bars? Okay, so how you can do that? So spacing required over the width, here it is also have clearly mentioned that over the width. So spacing required will equal to 201 unit area divided by total area required 2534.35 multiplied by over the full width considered in calculation 2250. So we are getting the demand of the spacing as 178.5 mm spacing is required. So the spacing between the two bar which is running along the length should be what? It should be at maximum of, it is not the minimum, it is the maximum of 178. You are not allowed to provide more than of this value. Your spacing should always be less than of this value. So here what I am going to decide, I am going to round down this value by 25 mm. So hence provide this spacing as lower value will be what? 150 mm center to center. We have to lower this value by 25 mm. We have to round down this value by 25 mm. So it is going to become a 150 mm center to center. So provide 16 mm dia at a spacing of 150 mm along the length of the footing over the width. Hope that you all understood. Just come down. Area of steel provided, because some changes we have made, it is the requirement of the spacing. We have lowered this value to 150. Okay, now area of steel finally provided is going to become what? 201.06 divided by 150 multiplied by overall width. Okay, so that is going to become 3015.9 mm square. It is the final provided, and this is what the design requirement. It was the design requirement, so we have taken this design requirement to find out the spacing. If we are going to reduce the spacing, obviously reinforcement is going to increase. Try to understand. Students here also sometimes they are confused. Suppose this is your section, okay, and this is your length. We have calculated the spacing as required as what? Along the length over the width, and we are getting the spacing requirement is what? 178.5. So with 178.5, if I am going to reduce the spacing, obviously the bars are coming close to each other and number of bars will increase. If number of bars are going to increase, obviously percentage is going to increase, area is going to increase. Are you getting? If I am going to reduce this spacing, so that's why we need to find out again what finally reinforcements are provided in your foundation along the length. So what I am going to do here, 3015.9 mm square is the provided reinforcement. Now finally percentage of reinforcement is going to become what? PT AST divided by B into D. AST finally provided divided by final section size width multiplied by depth. You are getting finally provided percentage of reinforcement is what? 0.206% of reinforcement has provided in your foundation along the length of the footing. Hope that you all understood how to do the calculation of the reinforcement along the length of the footing over the width. Now the same calculation we have to do for making the calculation of reinforcement along the width of the footing over the length. So in this situation, suppose this is your foundation and there is a presence of this column, and we have made the calculation for the moment along the width. So suppose this is the moment you are getting here, and it is what? It is the width. So we have calculated the moments along the width, and this moment we are going to use for finding out the reinforcement. So reinforcement will be along the width. The reinforcement will be what? Along the width, along the length. Its distribution will be along the length. Okay, so length is going to become width. Your length is going to become width for the calculation of the reinforcement along the actual width. Don't be confused, try to understand. We are going to find out the reinforcement along the width of the footing, and we have calculated the moment along this width of the footing. So we are going to utilize this moment for making the calculation of the reinforcement along the width, but its distribution will be along the length. So this length is going to become width. So length is what? 2.5 meter or 2500 mm. Hope that you all understood. Now put all this value in this formula. We are getting the design requirement as 2370.76. Design requirement we are getting here. Now minimum percentage we are getting 1950. Minimum requirement it is. Now providing 16 mm dia, unit area 201, it is going to become. Spacing required over the width, spacing required over the length. It should not be width, it should be over the length. It should be over the length. I will correct it. Now spacing required 201 divided by 2730.76 multiplied by full width considered, that is what? 2500. So here spacing required is 184.07 mm. So if we are going to round down this value by 25 mm, so you are getting what? Spacing that we have to provide as 150 mm center to center along the width over the length, along the width over the length. Okay, so provide 16 mm dia at a spacing of 150 mm center to center along the width of the footing over the length. Okay, next, area of steel provided is going to become 201 unit area divided by 150 provided spacing multiplied by considered width as 2500. So finally area of reinforcement has provided as 3551 mm square. And if you are going to find out how much percentage of reinforcement is provided there, so AST divided by B into D, if you are going to put all these values here as provided area of reinforcement divided by width where considered 2500 multiplied by overall depth, so provided percentage of reinforcement you are getting again 0.206. So it is what the reinforcement, how to calculate along the length of the footing, along the width of the footing. So we have finalized the reinforcement along the length and along the width. So see, along the length of the footing reinforcement will be there of 16 mm dia at a spacing of 150 mm center to center. Along the width of the footing there will be the reinforcement again 16 mm dia at a spacing of 150 mm center to center. So in both of the direction we are getting the reinforcement as same, with the same dia and with same spacing. Hope that you all understood these things. We have to check provided depth against the shear whether it is safe or unsafe. So when you are going to look at the shear checks, so there are two checks are very important. That first one is what? Check for the one-way shear, and another one check for the two-way shear. So first of all we are going to look at check for the one-way shear. So we need to consider the critical section at a distance of D from the face of the column in each of the direction. And then we have to find out the shear force at this critical section, how much the shear force is going to be developed at this critical section, and with the help of this shear force we have to find out the how much nominal shear force are going to be developed at this critical section at a distance of D from the face of the column in each of the direction. And we will compare the shear force with the your critical shear force. If your nominal shear is less than of your critical shear, then we can say that our provided depth is safe. But in a situation when your nominal shear is going to become more than of your critical shear, then we are going to say that our provided depth is not safe. We need to increase it, we need to revise it. So let's follow this step to know whether the nominal shear is less than or more than of your critical shear. So the formula is what? For making the calculation along the length of the footing, the shear force will equal to upward soil pressure multiplied by width of the footing multiplied by this projected span of your footing beyond of this d distance. This much we only have to calculate. Now how much this span? Okay, how you can calculate how much this span? So it's very simple. Total length of your footing minus this side of your column, that I am going to call it as A divided by 2. So that is how much it will become? It will become this projected part only. Then if you are subtract this d effective depth, so you will get this much span. So that I am going to do here. L minus A side of your column along the considered direction divided by 2 minus the effective depth. So if you are going to put all this value in this equation, upward soil pressure, width of the footing 2.25, because we are making the calculation along the length. So width is what? Actual width. So 2.25 multiplied by length is 2.5 minus side of the column along the considered direction is what? 450. So that is what? 0.45 divided by 2 minus the effective depth. So you are getting what? 285.776 kilonewton force you are getting. Okay. Now just multiply this value by 1.5. So we will get the ultimate value, or we can say the factored value, as 428.665 kilonewton. If you would like to find out the nominal shear, so nominal shear is going to become what? Tau V is equal to Vu divided by B into D. If you are going to put all this value here, so you are getting the nominal shear as 0.322 MPa Newton per mm square. This is what the nominal shear is going to be developed at this critical section. At this critical section along the length. Now I have to compare this with a critical shear. So to find out the critical shear at the proposed section, we should know the percentage of steel at that section. So how much reinforcement, percentage of reinforcements are available along the length of the footing. So along the length of the footing, how much percentage of reinforcement is there? Along the length, there is a percentage available as 0.206. That I am going to take here into consideration as percentage available as 0.206, and characteristic strength of the concrete is what? 20. So these two important factors are there to decide the how much critical shear is going to be developed, or how much critical shear is there at the proposed section. So you need to look at IS code 456-2000 clause number 40.4. Let me show you. Look at the table number 19, the design shear strength of your concrete. Okay, so it depends on the grade of your concrete and percentage of reinforcement available. So we want to know for the M20 grade of concrete and available percentage of reinforcement is how much. Let me show you. Available percentage of reinforcement is 0.206. For this specific percentage of reinforcement, there is no any provision for this specific percentage of reinforcement. So we need to do the linear interpolation. So this value will come in between 0.20, will come in between 0.15 and 0.25. So for 0.15 the value is 0.28, and for 0.25 the value is 0.36. Let me put all this value here. For 0.15 it is 0.28, for 0.25 it is 0.36. We want to know the value of critical shear for the percentage of reinforcement as 0.206. So if you are going to put this all value here, so you are getting the critical shear as, after performing the linear interpolation, you are getting the critical shear value as 0.3248 Newton per mm square, that is what? MPa. Now compare your nominal shear with your critical shear. So we are getting that your nominal shear is less than of your critical shear. Hence that we are going to conclude our provided depth is safe for the one-way shear along the length of the footing only. Same procedure you have to follow for making the calculation along the width of the footing. So for the width of the footing, upward soil pressure, now we have to make the calculation along the width of the footing. So length we need to consider. So here it is what? Length of the footing multiplied by this total width minus side of your column along the considered direction and divide by 2 minus d. If you are going to put all this value here, so you are getting what? Shear force as 306.529. If you are going to multiply it by 1.5, you are getting what? Factored shear force as 549.795. Nominal shear by this formula you are getting what? 0.310 Newton mm square. To find out the shear at the critical section, we should know the percentage of steel at this particular section. Again, so along the width, how much percentage of reinforcement is there I need to know. So along the width, the available percentage of reinforcement is same 0.206. Again it will come in between 0.15 and 0.25. Let me show you here. To find the shear at the critical section, we should know the percentage of steel at that particular section. So it is 0.206 and characteristic strength of the concrete is 20. Okay, so as per IS code 456/2000 clause number 40.4, the same thing will be there for 0.15%, 0.28 value is there, for 0.25, 0.36 is there, and we need to know the value for 0.206. So that is going to become 0.3248. So it is same 0.3248. Now we have to compare nominal shear with the critical shear. So here again we are getting your nominal shear is less than of your critical shear. Hence we are going to say that our provided depth is okay. No need to provide any shear reinforcement. So in both of the direction, the design is safe in one-way shear. That is what the final conclusion for the one-way shear check. Now we have to perform the two-way shear check. That also sometimes we are calling it as punching shear. Now we have to check our provided depth against the punching shear or two-way shear. So for that we need to consider the critical section at a distance of d by 2 from the face of your column in all the direction. And after that we need to find out the how much shear force is going to be developed at this critical section, which we are considering at a distance of d from the face of your column in all the direction. Right. So the concept is what? For finding out the shear force. For finding out the shear force, the formula is going to become upward soil pressure. That's unit will be what? In kilonewton per meter square. Very simple. You have to multiply it with the total area. Total area of the footing is what? Length and width of the footing. You have to multiply and you have to subtract this internal area. This is what? Shaded area, which is at a distance of d by 2 from the face of your column. So that you have to what? Subtract from total area of the footing. So it is going to become what? Again it will become in meter square. So meter square is going to be cancelled. You are getting the your shear force for the two-way punching shear area as kilonewton. Okay. Then you have to multiply that value with 1.5. So you will get the factored value. So we are going to proceed for finding out the punching shear value. So here the upward soil pressure we know that 293.33. You have to multiply it with the total area. Here it is what? Total area 2.5 multiplied by 2.25 minus it is what? Along the length. Along the length how much it is going to become? Very simple it is. This is d by 2 and on this side also there will be the d by 2. So d by 2 is going to become total d plus a dimension of your column along the length direction that we are considering 0.45. So it is 45 size of your column. So it is one dimension you are getting. Similarly on this side it is d by 2. Here it is d by 2. But here it is what? It will be 0.23. It is wrong. It is wrong. It should be what? 0.23. 0.23 plus d. Here also it will be 0.23 plus d. So likewise it is going to become what? One side as 0.45 plus 0.592. You have to multiply this value with 0.23 plus 0.592. If you are going to do the calculation here, you are getting the shear force value as 1398.737 kilonewton. This is the service shear force. We have to multiply this by 1.5. So you are getting what? Shear force value finally as ultimate value 2098.106 kilonewton. Remember. Now next thing that I want to know, how much perimeter length, how much this perimeter, okay, how much this total span, okay, how you can calculate it? 0.45 plus 0.592 multiply it by 2. because one side is also there. So it is going to become 2 plus 0.23 plus 0.592 multiplied by 2. Okay, so you are getting what? Total perimeter of this shaded area. So that we need to do here, very simple it is. So perimeter length of shear area B dash, we are going to represent it B dash equal to 0.45 plus 0.592 multiplied by 2 plus 0.23 plus 0.592 multiplied by 2. Total perimeter, total running length of this square, okay, or this rectangle, how much it is going to become? 3.728 meter. In mm if we are going to put it, so it is going to become 3728 mm. Now actual concept of performing the shear check is what? We need to find out the nominal shear that is going to be developed at the considered critical section. Due to action of the loading, how much the nominal shear is going to be developed at this critical section, and you have to compare that nominal shear with your critical capacity of this section, critical shear capacity of this section. If your nominal shear that is going to be developed due to application of the loading, it is less than of your critical shear means the capacity of this section. Okay, if it is less than, nominal shear is less than the capacity of the section, means we are going to say okay, whatever the load you are going to impose which is less than the capacity of that particular section, so we are going to say okay. But in a situation when nominal shear is going to become more than of your critical capacity, then we have to say that something is wrong, we need to revise the design, we need to increase the depth of your footing. To make your design as safe under the punching shear check, always you need to increase the depth of the footing, remember. Okay, so here nominal shear at critical section, what is the formula? Tau V is equal to Vu upon B dash multiplied by effective depth. Put the value here. Ultimate or factored shear force you have to put here for the punching, that we are getting here. How much it is? 2098 into 0.109 into 10 raised to 3 divided by 3728 perimeter length, and it is what? Effective depth 592. You are getting the nominal shear as 0.9507 Newton per mm square or MPa. As per referring of IS 456-2000 clause number 31.6.3, which is available on the page number 58, the shear at critical section will equal to tau c multiplied by Ks. There is written that Ks equal to 0.5 plus beta c, where beta c is the shorter side of your column to the longer side of your column. So shorter side of your column is what? 230. Longer side of your column is what? 450. Okay, so here 230 by 450, how much we are getting? 0.511. Put this value in this formula to find out the Ks value. We are getting 0.5 plus 0.511 as equal to 1.011. But if you are going to look at the clause, so what clause has said that the value of Ks equal to 0.5 plus beta c, but it should not be greater than of 1. In no any case you are allowed to consider this Ks value more than of 1. But here in our calculation, what value we are getting? More than of 1. So we are restricted to consider the Ks value to maximum of 1. That's why we are going to consider it as 1. Thereafter, the formula for tau c is given in your code as tau c formula is equal to 0.25 under root of FCK in the limit state method of design. And if you are considering the working stress method of design, then you have to consider 0.16 multiplied by square root of FCK. But as you know that we are designing our foundation by limit state method of design. Got it? So this formula we have to select that will become equal to what? Try to understand. Here it is going to become tau c is equal to 0.25 FCK. FCK is what? 20. So if we are going to put this value, so we are getting 1.118 MPa, means Newton per mm square. Now this is the tau c. Okay. Finally tau c we are getting and tau v we are getting. Actually shear at critical section, the formula is what? Tau c multiplied by Ks. But Ks equal to 1. If you are going to multiply this Ks with the tau c, ultimately you are getting what? Tau c 1.118. So we are going to say that shear capacity at the critical section is how much? 1.118 MPa Newton per mm square. Now you have to compare this tau c with your nominal shear that is available here as tau v. So tau v value is what? 0.957 and tau c value is 1.118. So we are going to conclude that your nominal shear is less than of your critical shear, hence our design is okay. We don't need to change the depth of the footing, it is safe under the punching shear. So this is what we have checked our provided depth against the one-way shear, against the provided depth, against the two-way shear. In both of these shear checks, your depth is okay. So we are going to say that our design in every aspect is okay. Your length is okay, your depth is okay, your width is okay, your reinforcement is okay, everything is perfect. So after complete design of the foundation, you need to go for the scheduling. Okay, what does mean by this scheduling? Scheduling means summary of your design result. Final designed schedule and details. The length of the footing we have provided as 2500 mm. The width of the footing we have provided as 2250 mm. The depth of the footing we have provided as 650 mm as overall depth. The reinforcement along the length and width of the footing we have provided as 16 mm dia at a spacing of 150 mm center to center. So this is called as scheduling of your design result. Thereafter we have to prepare the detailed diagram. Detailed diagram will include the sectional elevation along the length of the footing, the sectional elevation along the width of the footing, that will show you how the reinforcement has to place over your footing. Thereafter we have to prepare the in-plant detailing of your design result, that will show you how much the length of the footing is there, how much the width of the footing is there, then how the reinforcement are going to be placed. So along the length of the footing we are going to put the 16 mm dia at a spacing of 150 mm center to center. Likewise, along the width of the footing we are going to place the reinforcement of 16 mm dia at a spacing of 150 mm center to center. So this is what in-plant detailing of your foundation, and this is sectional elevation detailing of your foundation, and this is what the final schedule of your foundation design. Hope that you all understood everything. Thank you very much you all.
Hello everyone, welcome you all in a new ISO certified live training program, design of substructure using CSI Safe, Excel and manual. In this training program, you will learn all about the concept of substructure design, commands in CSI Safe software for the substructure design, validation of CSI Safe result with your manual and advanced Excel sheets. This training program will cover 4 real life projects. In the first and second, we will cover all the types of isolated foundation in CSI Safe software. In the third real life project, we will cover the raft foundation. And in the fourth real life project, there will be the coverage of pile and pile cap design of basement wall. And at the end of this training program, we will learn how to prepare the final design sheet for the site execution. Have a look over the features of this training. Daily live classes conducted by experts. Recording of every session, can interact with expert anytime. Exposure to real practice. ISO certification of training. It's 5-star rated training program. Till now, more than 1,000 participants have benefited from this training program. Now you are the next.